Hey everybody, welcome back to the LEGO Ron Swanson video tutorial. In the previous video I demonstrated the process of creating Ron Swanson as a LEGO minifig, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of animating Ron in a scene. Now I'm just going to admit this up front, this is not the most entertaining process in the world. It's actually kind of monotonous and boring. For your benefit, I've sped it up quite a bit. Normally this would take about 2 or 3 days to make, and over a week to render, and I don't think you guys want to watch a video that long, so I'm speeding it up to ludicrous speed. And if you just have zero interest in watching how I make this stuff, you can click this button right here and it will take you to the end of the video and you'll be able to see the final version of the LEGO Ron Swanson video. But if you stick around and are interested in finding out a little bit more about the video, I'm going to be answering some questions that a few of you asked me on Twitter and YouTube, so let's get to work. Now, the idea behind this animated sequence is I'm going to take Ron Swanson's introductory moment from the Parks and Recreation title sequence, specifically the moment where he takes this golden gun that he received as a gift from the Parks and Recreation diplomats from Venezuela, from that episode with Fred Armisen, and I'm going to recreate that short sequence where we first see Ron Swanson and he takes the gun and he acts like an action hero. Now, in order to make this video a little bit faster, I'm going to repurpose some of the assets that I made for previous videos. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the Jeep, the Skylar's vehicle that I made for the Breaking Bad video. I'm going to grab one of its chairs and repurpose that as Ron's desk chair. Next, I'm going to go into the Last of Us video, take Ellie's cover that she hides behind when she throws the Molotov cocktail at those clickers, and that's going to be Ron's desk. And finally, I'm going to take this golden gun, which I had originally built for Rick in The Last of Us, and I'm going to color it gold, and that's going to be Ron's gun. And as you can see here, good animation takes a lot of time. The devil is in the details. It isn't as easy as moving Ron once. It's going back and correcting appendages, making sure they move properly. Ultimately, good animation comes from observing how people move realistically, trying to make your character move as though they have weight. You don't want a character to look like they have no inertia. So while I animate this sequence, I'm going to go ahead and answer a couple of questions that a few people have asked me on YouTube and Twitter. So, first question, Ryan asks, do you work for LEGO or Traveler's Tales? I don't. I'm just a freelancer. I've never worked for either company. I'm just a big fan of the stuff they make. Luis asks, why don't you put up a new video every week? I'd love it if I could do a new video every week, but unfortunately, these things take a ton of time to make. The Breaking Bad video took about 2,000 hours over like 3.5 months. The Last of Us video, that one only took 400 hours, and the Batman video, Lego The Dark Knight, took about 1,200 hours. And honestly, that's just 3D animation for you. 3D animation is a really time-consuming process. Rendering is a really time-consuming process. And unfortunately, I just don't have the manpower or the equipment to be able to make these videos any faster right now. Trust me, if I could do it, I would do it. Liam says, this is really awesome. I really hope this means you're planning to make a LEGO Parks and Rec. The whole process is amazing. I think a minifigure of Tom, April, Andy, Chris would also be great. I'd be open to it. I had an idea for a LEGO Parks and Recreation video, but it depended very heavily on the opening theme song, and that's kind of a nebulous issue with YouTube. Like, there are some YouTube videos that can use a theme song from a TV show and not get flagged, and then there are other YouTube videos where you use the theme song from a TV show and it gets flagged immediately. So I'm open to a LEGO Parks and Recreation video. I just don't know if I would be allowed to do it, at least the way I want to do it. At this point, with the animation mostly complete, I'm going to create a couple of assets for Ron's desk, a couple of decorations, specifically a computer and a nameplate with his name on it. Celestia says, "You should have had the characters talking gibberish like in the LEGO series video games." Trust me, I've been trying to do that as much as I can. However, it's not always easy to convey a story purely through body language. I mean, if you go back and you watch the Dark Knight video, there are some fairly complicated communications that take place that would have been way easier if the characters could talk. In fact, in earlier versions of the Dark Knight video, characters were talking with one another. And ultimately, I just stripped all of the dialogue out of there and performed everything with body language. But man, that was hard. So yeah, ultimately, I'll try and do as much as I can without actual language, try and do everything with body language. But there are just some stories that demand dialogue. With Ron's body animated, I'm going to move on to his face. And unfortunately, I'm not able to animate Ron's face and body simultaneously. It's kind of complicated, so what I have to do is I have to go into that face that I made in the last tutorial and animate that separate from the body. Now, a little problem with Ron is his mustache needs to animate with his mouth. Since he's a cartoon character in this case, his mouth is making really big shapes, and his mustache can't, stay stuck in the middle of his face. It has to contort with the mouth. And in order to make his mustache contort, I have to make a blend shape for that mustache for every individual mouth shape that this character can make. Now, something I want to do here is I want to make sure that when I'm animating the face, I can animate the mouth and the mustache automatically animates around it. I don't want to have to go in there and for every individual mouth movement go in and animate the mustache. That can result in some weirdness. I want the mustache to animate automatically with the mouth, and I'm going to do that by setting up a whole bunch of driven keys with those blend shapes. Now, with the mustache, blend shapes, and driven keys all set up and ready to go, I import the play blast that I made of Ron Swanson's body animating. I just put it in the corner of the screen, and I animate the face mimicking the actions of the body. Here I'm just creating a couple more things to put on his desk and put on the wall behind him. Now in the show, Ron has an affinity for dark-haired women and breakfast foods, and he has like this frame photo of like eggs and bacon on the wall behind his desk. So I'm going to recreate that with Lego stuff. And just to kind of spice up the scene a little bit more, I'm going to take this Lego bacon and eggs model that I just built, and I'm going to put it on his desk too, just to kind of, populate the scene a little bit more. Jeffrey says, make Breaking Bad Part 2. I'm open to it. I'd love to do another Breaking Bad video. Ultimately, it depends on that new TV series, Better Call Saul. If I like that, if I have a good idea, and if it's something I can accomplish, absolutely, I'd for sure do another Breaking Bad video. Ben asks, I've never seen anyone use After Effects for their texturing. Is there a reason you use it instead of Photoshop or GIMP? I use Photoshop all the time. It just so happens in this case, the textures for Ron were simple enough that I could accomplish everything that I needed in After Effects. Shadowhawk055 asks, what type of rendering setup do you use, and are the main materials for the Legos blends? Yep, the majority of the materials are blends. Occasionally I'll use a mental ray material for a Lego piece that looks a little bit duller than the other pieces, like, normally for hair. As for my rendering setup, I've got kind of a primitive setup. I've got one rendering computer in addition to my main animation computer. That's part of the reason these videos take so long to make. the Breaking Bad video was rendered entirely on that one computer, and that's why it took like 2.5 months to render. Heisenberg asks, do you just do Lego movies, or do you do other stuff too? Well, originally when I created this channel, my intent was to make it like a variety of things. The first video was going to be a Lego video, which ended up being Breaking Bad. The second video was going to be like a Street Fighter game, an arena fighting video game, which ended up being Bluth Fighter. And the third video was going to be a kart racer. But when I got the initial feedback for Bluth Fighter, I decided that it would be smart to do more Lego stuff, and that brought me to where I am today. Now, I am working on stuff that isn't Lego related. In fact, I have 2 videos in the pipeline right now that I'm working on that should come out eventually that have nothing to do with Lego. With the animation and the rendering done, I move on to the very last step of this video, and that's compositing. And compositing is the step where you take these rendered images, in the case of this video, a beauty pass, an ambient occlusion pass, and a depth pass, and I combine those 3 layers together, and what results is a fairly photorealistic looking scene. At this point in the compositing process, I decided to add, a couple little effects. I've decided that that computer screen in the background should glow just a tiny little bit. And on top of that, Ron has a word processing program going on in the background. I want to have a little cursor that's blinking just at the end of the text, just to kind of sell the scene a little bit better. Now, the problem with that idea is Ron, at multiple points in the animation, he crosses in front of the computer screen. And what I have to do is I have to mask him out so he doesn't glow. I just want the computer screen to glow. So I have to go in there and I have to roto Ron out and just make sure that the computer screen is the only part of the scene that's glowing. With the animation completely rendered, composited, and finished, I send the video to my extremely talented sound designer Dustin Bozovich, and he works his magic, and what results is... And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make Lego Ron Swanson. Now, if you have a question that perhaps I didn't answer in this video, go ahead and leave it below. And if you could please do me a favor, like this video, share it with your friends, and please subscribe, you'd be a great help.